I guess the first moment is is I remember it very clearly. It was in a vegetarian Vietnamese restaurant on Lake Street in Northbridge in Perth, and we were having a dinner for the Animal Liberation who I was working for at the time. It's when I was at uni, and there was one woman there who was a Buddhist. And this was, I didn't know Buddhists at the time, you know, and then somebody said, oh, she's a Buddhist. And I knew that she had these really, really pure and clear eyes. Yeah, and it really kind of struck me. And so that was kind of one moment that made some kind of connection for me. Many, many years later, I ended up in the monastery. Was there, I don't know if I can think of one moment when I could say, you know, this is when I wanted to be a monk or whatever. I remember another time, I remember sitting at a guest house, and I'd done my first retreat and so on, and because I was a musician, right? So I was at the guest house, we were sitting there with some friends, there was some Thai people and some Thai musos from one of the well-known rock bands in Thailand, and we're sitting around and somebody pulls out a joint. And so they light up the joint and they're passing it around and everybody's having some. And this was the first time that I'd been tempted by such worldly things after my encounter with the Dhamma, you see. And so I'm sitting there and somebody hands me the joint and I just kind of looked at it and handed it on. And so then one of my very good friends there, he saw that and he said, oh, look, you should just become a monk. I probably suffered more from an excess of naive enthusiasm than suffering from a lot of doubts. In a sense, the encounter with Buddhism came out of a period of doubts, you know. So I was already in that stage where I didn't know what I was doing, where I knew my life had to change, but I didn't know what it was going to change to. So the encounter of Buddhism really for me was an encounter with clarity, that I felt that this was something that I really wanted to do. So I took up my Dhamma practice when I was in Thailand, and when I went there I had already more or less left behind the things of my life. I'd left behind my girlfriend, I'd left behind my family, my guitars, all of the things which had defined my existence. So, yeah, there wasn't too much left.
Your naive enthusiasm. Talk about that.
Well, naive enthusiasm. I guess when we first encounter the Dhamma, then especially from someone from a Western country, I didn't have wide experience of Dhamma. So like in a sense, my first experience of Buddhism was of an extremely intensive retreat, and of looking very, very deeply into the depths of my own consciousness. And that was a very profound experience and a very life-changing one for me. And so it's taken a long time to realize that actually not all of Buddhism is like that. Yeah? And that a lot of Buddhism actually is fairly shallow, and a lot of Buddhism doesn't really understand about those things and so on. It was an experience of learning how to take that depth of that experience and learning how to integrate it into life. And that's what I found very useful in the monastic path, because as in the lay life, I found I couldn't find anywhere to find a context or anyone who actually cared or knew about what I was doing. Whereas in the monastic life, that was taken for granted. This is what we were here to do. Well, yeah, I haven't thought about it in terms of stages, but I do recognise various kinds of change. I've definitely become much more, broad or accommodating in my approach to Dhamma. In the early years, I was tending to be probably a bit fundamentalist, a bit kind of literalist, a bit narrow-minded. This is the right way of doing things, yeah? Critical of other people doing other things, which I didn't understand really what they were doing. And with kind of boundless self-confidence that I could overcome, anything. Sort of gradually, little bit by little bit, that gets kind of whittled away. You get a more realistic assessment of what your own capabilities are, and also more appreciation for the paths that other people are on, and recognising I guess recognizing that these things are not they're not rational, or they're not doesn't make sense. You know, why somebody chooses one particular path or another. I mean, you can, in abstract, you can talk about why this one is good or what that one provides and what are the benefits of this. In reality, we take a spiritual path for all kinds of conscious or subconscious reasons, which are completely different for different people. Well, I'd like to become an arahant. I'd like to become fully enlightened.
And if you, before that, is there anything else you'd like to see that
Well,
through your work? That
I've become a non-returner before that, and once before that, and stream enterer before that. But look, in terms of more worldly things, obviously I've been very dedicated to helping establish the Bhikkhuni Sangha in the forest tradition, and that is something which is very dear to my heart and which I'd really love to see flourishing. Yeah.
And you copped a bit of flack for that recently.
I've got
as
one
well.
or two little bits of flack for it, yeah.
And where does that place you then? Does it make you, in a sense, in some way, rebelling? Or?
Oh yeah, hopefully, yeah. But I'm certainly, you know, persona non grata in certain circles. You know, I mean, you wouldn't go. I mean, my websites and blogs get banned in some monasteries and things like that. You know, because freedom of speech isn't really tolerated in some places. So. Yeah, you cop flack, but what do you expect, you know? I don't expect anything else. Four Noble Truths.
And how would you see that, you know, kind of like inserting that, mainstreaming the Four Noble Truths?
Yeah, mainstreaming, well, the most direct thing is understanding that consumerism isn't going to lead to happiness. Yeah, understanding that the world has gone completely out of balance. That our quest for material things, which is actually a normal and natural thing. I mean, every being and creature wants a certain degree of comfort. They want decent food. They want security. So they're all perfectly natural desires, and everyone wants them. But it's become so obsessive and so completely ridiculous that it actually threatens to destroy us all. And may very well do so. I mean, we're not talking about abstract threats. We're talking about global warming, which is happening right now. We're talking about the running out of the world's drinking water supplies, which is going to become a huge issue in the next decades. Running out of oil. All of these things are going to have massive, major effects on all of us. And for all of the discussions about emissions trading schemes and blah, 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 at the end of the day, it's not going to work until people learn how to be content.